Hi, this is Lori from To the Trade, Niles away in Italy right now on a
Ooh,
time of his life.
nice.
Have Mia Johnson. Hi, Mia. I'm so excited to be talking to you today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
This has been a long time coming because honestly, I've been a huge fan of yours since the very
Oh,
beginning. I always kind of spot people I think are going to take off. I feel like I'm just somebody who kind of pays attention to where the
okay.
landscape is. And I definitely clocked you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But I really wanna start and from the very beginning of your journey into the world of interior design, what made you wanna become an interior designer?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'd like to say that I've always been a creative, and I know you're supposed to have like a 2-second elevator pitch, but my elevator pitch has to go to the 100th floor so that I can get the story in.
Go
Um,
for it.
I've always been a creative person, and I remember back when my mother purchased like the first in our world, like luxury sofa. I remember what the textile looked like. It was mauve, the color that's in now. She painted the whole house. So that was like my first memory of design because it was such a stark difference from like our sofa that had a plastic cover over it, right? And so that was really young. And then when my mother was redoing the kitchen another time, so she's a huge influence on me. I remember convincing her to paint it this pearl color. Lori, don't ask me where I saw this, where I got it, but I just was like, Mom, it's gonna reflect. It has these pearl colors in it. And she did it, and it was like a thick, creamy, and we had to paint it so many times because it was so thick, but it was so pretty when we ended. Like I can see it vividly to this day. I don't
Wow.
even know if they still make it because it's not metallic, but it had like a real pearl iridescent finish to it. Then we did the border in the kitchen. That was all the rage back in the day, like with
Right.
the big fruit prints. I designed my baby sister's room. We did like a green, really, really bright green wall, and then a black and white crystal chandelier, and just all of the things. And so it's always been like that. I've been married 20 years. I've always designed even our apartments. Like I remember doing a sponge technique in our kitchen and then painting kitchen cabinets in the apartment. And my husband was like, "You're going to cost us a fortune." I was like, "Trust me, it's going to be fine." Because they were like that linoleum with the wood at the bottom, not linoleum, that melamine. And I was like, I
Right,
can't
right,
live I've always felt like even if it's temporary, your home should feel like you. So I
right.
painted the kitchen cabinets white. I put down peel and stick floor. And Lori, this was literally like 15 years ago. I was doing
Right.
all of this. And it always worked out because the apartment was like, oh, we were going to replace those cabinets anyway. So just threw them away. The floor was cracked anyway. So they just put it up when we moved. Fast forward a little bit, I used to be a makeup artist. I've always had a corporate job, but I was a makeup artist for a little bit, did weddings for people, special occasion. People still ask me to this day, like, me, are you still doing makeup? And I'm like, nah, so that part has always been there. There has always been a creative side to me. And then my first project was in '08, and I was really going for project management. I am to this day still a certified PMP. And so they were like the executives at the company I worked for was a big healthcare company here in Michigan, and I worked for the subsidiary. They were merging. And so they were like, "Can you help this PM out? This will give you a chance to kind of show your stuff and see what you got going on." I was like, "Sure." That turned into me managing the whole project, and it ended up having a construction side, which had a design side. And so there was a corporate design team, but it was very stock. If you were a VP, you got this desk. If you were a director, you got this desk manager. And I was like, why does it have to be this way? Like, why can't we do this? And why can't we do that? And what about this? And so the CFO was like, if you stay within the budget, you could do whatever. And of course, I got all the leadership on my side because I was like, you're going to have a wood tone desk and office with this. You're not going to get that stock office. So the design team ended up leaving the project. They were like, we're going to give it over to Mia. So I had blueprints. I had a pink hard hat because there was still like a technology project management side to it. or business side. And so I would have a suit on, I would have my pink hard hat. And then because it was commercial, there was union I had to deal with. I had to make sure that the union guys didn't see the non-union guy. Right.
Right,
And
sure.
so that was my very first project. It was 44,000 square feet. I remember doing the research on the cafeteria. You know, when you don't have windows in a cafeteria for your workforce, you should really make it bright. So we did, and the logo for the company was like a blue, green, really soft colors. And so I just punched it up a little bit. We did a black and white checkerboard, which again is all the rage now. I did that floor and it won awards. The city came out. And so I always like to say that should have been the start. You would think, oh, I'm opening my firm, I've got this, and all of that. And it's just not. So that's why I'm a really big advocate for education and letting people know that this is a viable career, because I didn't think I could do it. It was really fun. I loved it. The stress, the blueprints, I just lived for it. Maybe because I didn't have a kid at the time, but that was
Right.
like, it was one of my, to this day, it's still like one of my favorite projects. And it was the first thing I had ever done like that.
You
But
jumped with both feet. I mean, that's a
I did.
first project.
And
That's
I think in this, my specialty is I'm a people person, as you know, right? And so it is meeting people. And so the lead general contractor for the foreman for the project, he was an older Black man, and he took me under his wing, and he would be like, you need to know this, you need to do this. And that's really what project management is. Like, I can't, and it's the same in our projects today. I need to know just enough to take it over the finish line, but I can't be a tile expert. I can't be a GC. I have to rely on the other people to help me. And so that's what I think is a specialty of mine. I rely on the folks that know the knowledge and help me bring the vision to life. But again, fast forward, I went on to have a thriving project management career and didn't even think about design again besides my own. And so then we bought our first house in 2018. And my husband was like, you should blog about what you're doing. I'm a better talker than blogger. So I started posting it, and I would get like, can you do my house? Can you do my house? And my first client, she had just bought her dream house, and she was like, can you help me? And I was like, sure. I had a business name. I was a business, but it was going to be more geared towards my own home. My dream was to get all these deals and partnerships to donate it, because I didn't know anything about paid. It was before all of that,
right.
to work on my home. So I was trying to accept money via PayPal, and it was a mess. I had to, open up my business bank account. And so I dove in feet first, and that was my first project. So I started in like 2020. So that's my long story.
No, I mean, I think that that's probably a similar story to a lot of people who are
Mhm.
jumping in as a second career, because it
Yeah.
must eat away at people.
Yeah.
Like in the back of your mind, you love design, you love this, you feel that like rush and that joy
Yeah.
when you're thinking about the project and when it starts to come together and all of that excitement.
Right.
But, you know, it's an undertaking to start a business. It's
It is.
certainly where in this industry where you feel like, oh, everybody kind of it feels a lot like everybody knows everybody,
Hmm.
and that breaking in would be, I mean, there are, celebrities that are designers,
Yeah.
you know, it's hard. It feels a little bit like it's a closed club.
Yes, it
You
can
know what
it
I
can
mean?
feel that way. And my mother was an entrepreneur, and looking back, I just realized it probably a year or so ago that it's so similar. She worked corporate, and then her dream, I'm the oldest of 8, so she obviously loves children. She opened a daycare. Then that flourished into a Montessori school. She started off with the building, then she had a whole city block, and it was a really thriving business, but she ended up losing her joy for what she started, which was children, because then she had admin work, and then she had employees, and then she had hiring and firing. And it was just all of the things. And so she closed it and went back home because the business took over. And so I keep that in front of me a lot,
Right.
because I'm intentional as much as I can control where I'm at and what I'm doing and how I try to work my business, is because I remember the joy being taken from her. But it does feel closed. But I always say I think education is my lane. And if I had a podcast, it would be like, what did I say the title would be like? It would be called "Don't Do This Because I Did It." Like learn
Yeah.
from this, don't do this.
Don't make
Be
my mistake.
don't make my mistakes.
Sure.
And so
Yeah.
I am very big, about talking to people, helping them who start out. When I see new designers, you can see them at High Point. I think that's why I love doing the new tours for folks, because I'm like, ask me anything, right? Because I made so many mistakes that I just don't want other people to do. So it's closed, and I'm surprised sometimes when I go to these conferences and the designers who I look up to say they have some of the same problems. And I'm like, why aren't we talking about this? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and it was like, what software are you using? You use Canva? Like, you don't have this robust system in place. And so I talk to a lot of designers. I feel like we're working towards a place where maybe we can get some synergy that is not so isolating. And I've made a community. I have designers that I could call and say, okay, I got this going. What can I do? Even today, I was talking to my husband, and he is an engineer. So he is not in this space at all. And he's looking, eyes are glassing over him. And I said, you're my only coworker. He was like, I get it. I was like, you got to listen to me talk this through and figure this out, because I don't have a coworker. I have a design assistant, but she's not, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
he's my coworker that's right there, and I need to get this out my mind so that I can kind of flush it through, and he can help me. And so, yeah.
Yeah. I feel you. I have the same issue. I do this one thing with my husband. I'm like, does this make sense if I do it
Yes.
this way? And,
Right.
you need to bounce ideas off of someone. And my husband's like creative. I mean, he's a nerd too.
Oh God. Yeah.
In the
Yeah.
world of like printer manufacturing and
Oh,
training
nice.
and all of
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
My husband is an engineer in the used to be cybersecurity, but he works at the bank. So it's just very, he's
Yes, but
very like,
sometimes you need that
I do.
someone who's very organized in that way and thought process in that way.
Yes, you
It's
do.
another mindset versus a creative
It's
mindset.
very helpful.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
helpful.
And
Drives you
I'm
crazy, but it's very helpful.
exactly, and I'm an ultimate optimist, so I'm always gonna shoot for the stars, and he's like,
Same.
Bring
Same.
that down. Oh,
Yeah, I'm like,
bring that down a little bit."
it'll always work out,
Yeah, yeah,
is what
yeah.
I say.
I love that. When you come into this industry, what did you feel about the community of designers that were here? Did you feel welcome? Did you get a lot of immediate response to jumping in, or did you feel like it was a little bit awkward to make those first connections?
I I I found it to be a very genuine place. And I know that may be surprising, but the other thing too is I'm such a people person, so maybe it's just because, and I'm very transparent and open. And so maybe that is why it was that way for me. But I also think it was going to the conferences. It was introducing, it was showing the proper respect, and making the steps. So, for example, the reason I say that is I used to do during shutdown, whatever, I started Designer Tip Tuesdays. And because again, education is a big, to me, like telling the community what to do, right? And so it's like, how high should you hang your mirrors? Where should your curtains? Because you got people buying stuff, and I'm like, oh, your curtains are floating. They look terrible. And they
Right.
can't figure out why what they are doing isn't working. And so I would do Film Designer Tip Tuesdays. And so I'm always real intentional about trying to use my own pictures, my own content for all of my social media. I know you can buy stock photos, but I try to be real intentional. So that once I got into it a little bit, I didn't have the work. So I tagged several designers, made sure to give them credit. I did the voiceover, and I was showing how you can mix metals. And they were so appreciative. Some of them started following me, and we are friends. Like Rashida Gray is one. I did the Designer Tip Tuesdays. I tagged her kitchen. Nicole White, I tagged one of her design, and she was thankful. So then when you meet the person in real life, there was that connection there. So I did find it to be like, come on. I remember my first time at High Point, I brought my sister with me, and it was like I saw a group of people, they looked familiar, and I was just like kind of easing, you feel nervous. And it was like, hey man, come on. And we're getting ready to go here and we're getting ready to go here. And I think
I love that.
especially, yeah, especially too, because again, it's only 3% of interior designers are Black. And so I feel like we kind of like you see somebody and you're kind of like, does she need help? And, kind of come
I
along.
honestly, I just want to stop at you there because I think that that is an important statistic.
Mhm.
I think that that people can get the wrong impression of how many Black interior designers there are because I think a lot of you show up to the
Yes.
shows. So that gives people this idea that High Point is a reflection of all interior designers, but Black interior designers are coming, they're educating themselves, they're building community amongst themselves. I personally love, love, love to see it. I think it's so
Thank you. Yeah.
impactful because, you're building your own community right there and
Hmm.
helping each other with the challenges that you're facing,
Yeah.
in the day today. But I think it gives people an incorrect impression. So
That is a
I remember
great
when you
perspective.
guys were sharing that on Instagram and I
Yeah.
reshared it. I was like, look, this is the statistic as it is today. And I got messages from people saying had no idea
Right.
that it was, I mean, I would not have guessed that because of High Point, because of, and of course there were other people who were like, what about the other people of color? And I was like that.
Yeah. And so I always talk about how had I known,
Right.
maybe I would have started sooner. I don't begrudge my journey, but
Sure.
it is very much that just wasn't a reality. That wasn't anything. I didn't know Black interior designers back in 08, 09. You just don't.
Yeah.
And so if it was 3%, if it's 3% now, what was it then? Right?
Right. I mean, I
Who
remember
knows?
years ago, we had a Google Plus show. So it was like a hangout when we first started interior design community. This is 12 years ago.
Okay.
Or Susan Sarah she's an interior kitchen designer that was one of our moderators. And she was very interested in doing a topic that covered Black interior designers and their place in the industry. And had originally, this is before the Black interior designers group started,
Started. Okay.
we invited on Kim Ward. And we
Yes.
were having those conversations with
Hmm.
Kim years ago. And it feels
Yeah.
like, honestly, it feels sometimes like not much has changed since then because she
Mhm.
had the similar things to say, except
Yeah.
he was like, I did know I could be a designer, but I didn't know I could be a specialty designer. So I didn't know I could be a kitchen designer.
Oh, got it.
I didn't
Got
think
it.
that was
Yeah.
available to me. I have to
Hmm.
do whatever I can to do to get the work, you know?
Right. Right.
So that, that frank conversation, and I mean, like I said, that this is 12 years ago,
Yeah.
doesn't feel very different. I mean, although it is different. I mean, I will say going to High Point, when I first went to High Point 12 years ago, I was, I'm a white woman, but I was
Yeah.
even like, whoa, like,
Yeah.
too many blonde women in one spot. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
just feels weird. And I love to see diversity. And there were a lot of people that felt that way that worked on the inside
Yeah.
to change the culture at High
Hmm.
Point
Hmm.
and have since, made
Yeah.
diversity
Made some shot.
you know, part of the conversation. They
I
really
think
care.
and so me coming in, I've been going to High Point at either 2020 or 2021 was my first one. And so yeah, last year I participated in the Diversity Alliance, and that
Right.
was great because I made another connection with Erica Ward and several others. It is been through High Point and the conferences and the community that is online that most of us have been able to have friends and share. And so that's why it's like those things are very important to attend. And it's not, a lot of people, and not to get into politics or any of the other things, they kind of feel it can be isolating and trying to be, no, we all need each other to move in the world and to do that. But it is great to be able to see and talk to people that go have a similar experience in life as you. And so that is pretty much what that is. And my message is always to new incoming designers, go to the space, go to do the thing, right? Go to the conferences. They really make a difference. You're going to meet the people. It's going to be an expense to you, but apply for the grants or whatever you can to go, because a lot of the conferences they'll give away a student discount, a membership or something. But try to go to those places, because that's how you're going to make your community. You're going to meet people. I loved how we all went to Cavis. It just all kind of worked out for that opening weekend, and we were crying tears of joy. And somebody saw my mom and my daughter and was like, Mia has to be somewhere around here. And so it was just really good. It was really, really, it was like heartwarming. It was just such a good feeling. And so it is a good, positive community. I can't say enough things just about the community, but it's also been like meeting people like you. Huge ally has put me in rooms with folks that need to see me, right? Or,
Right.
or want to meet me, and they probably wouldn't have if it wasn't for the introduction. So we all need each other in order to thrive.
And we have to have this sense that it isn't going to take away from us by
Right.
helping another person. And it doesn't.
It
I've
doesn't.
never really seen, if you build a community like that, and if you are in that, I mean, I know designers who have been, I can't share this, or I can't share that. And that's my secret sauce. I can't, that I'm
Yeah.
not sharing what I pay, what I'm charging, or what I'm
Right.
paying for this, or who my receiver is, or, all of these secret resources. And they're like clinging on to them, like, for dear life. Like, if I do, then other people are going to somehow steal all the business that I have. And I just don't believe that in that feeling of competition. I just don't.
No.
I don't
Yeah.
think that. I think honestly, if we're sharing this information out there, we're all, the person who's doing that is also missing out.
That's what I was
Because you're
going to
not
say.
willing to share, then people aren't going to be willing to share with you.
Exactly.
And
I had offered to help a designer, solo entrepreneur, balancing two cities. And I was like, sure, we'll worry about the compensation, the payment or whatever. Just, I'll help you if within my capacity. It ended up working out. I didn't need to help her, but she shared something with me that I was able to share with her. So we did an exchange. I told her about Studio Mind, just all of the things. And she's like, that sounds great. I was like, I'll put you in connection to do this. So if you're tight, and all of us are and sometimes I don't think it's not people willing to, it is people not willing to share, but that's also what I find is I'm an entrepreneur. Somebody has paid me to do this thing. And I dealt with, and I've asked other designers this, you deal with feeling like a fraud almost, or not an expert if you need to ask somebody.
right.
And so but how I got over that is I said, if I was sitting at an office and I was stumped on something, that was my responsibility. And I turned to my coworker and said, I need to help. This number is tripping me up, this thing, or I'm having a problem with this executive, this person, this manager, whatever it is, and they helped you, it wouldn't take away from you completing your assignment, right?
Or for
And
that,
then
it wouldn't take away
or
from
from
them and
them.
their job either. They're not,
Right. And the bigger firms, they have it, but you can't wait till you're a big firm to have employees and have all of that to start reaching and
colleague,
asking of colleagues. Yeah.
right.
And so once I got over that mindset, and I was like, okay, if I look at it like that, I'm just asking a peer, how does this look? Or am I overthinking this? Am I pushing this wallpaper? Like, I'm trying to make this, like, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And once I realized, and it doesn't happen all the time, it just needs to happen once or
When you
twice
need it, when you
when you
need it.
need it. And if
Yeah.
you get over that, like, I can't share, you know, it's like, no, I need somebody to just vet this off of. And it can't be the husband. It needs to be a true creative that is looking at this with that same kind of critical eye. And they say, what about this? Or I saw a case good, or I saw a chair that might fit this space perfectly. Oh, that kind of thing. When we start thinking about it like that, I think it's better. And it's a mindset that you have to get over that. Yes, somebody is paying you, but it's okay to reach and ask somebody to help get the thoughts
So
out
do
of your
you have
mind.
like a group chat right now that you're kind of in on that, or is it one-on-one? Like,
It's
I know who
one-on-one.
to ask for this. I know who I want to ask for
Ye-
that.
there are group chats, but primarily those are like, you got it, girl, keep going, share I have this, and I've got several of those. I have this brand deal, or can you help me show this some love? Can you go, we have several of those, but I have individual designers that I'm like, hey, I need to talk to you. You got a second, and they're the same, or like, I want to share this with you. What are you thinking about this? Yeah, I have a few, particularly one that is like, where we talk, and we actually schedule time to get together and chat and keep up with each other and check in with each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that you
Yeah.
have this close relationship where you feel like you have almost a partner in the business that isn't a
Yes.
partner. But I mean, it
Yeah.
gives you that sense of like
Mhm.
checks and balances. And,
Yeah.
am I on the right track? And I'm sure that other designer gets just as much from you as you get from them.
Yeah.
It's a equally beneficial working relationship
Yeah.
where you're just sharing resources and ideas. And we are stronger. I just spoke
We
to a
are
group of
stronger
designers
together.
in Ireland who it's a new it's sort of an emerging market there. Interior design was not really a thing,
Yeah.
until recently in the last 15 years in Ireland.
Right. Oh,
And
I didn't know that.
yeah, and so there are lots of great builders and designers who are, there's always been the construction builder, but having someone come in and interior design your house
Right.
hasn't been really exploding in
Okay.
Ireland as much as it has recently. But, their pricing and their project size is in sort of its infancy. And so there are a
Hmm.
lot of questions based on pricing and how
Okay.
to charge. And we still struggle with that. I did a poll this week and I sent out, here are 4 top issues in the interior design industry, communication with clients or, dealing with manufacturers and the procurement process, pricing your projects. And then we still had 80% still were saying
Oh, for sure.
pricing the project is the hardest part of
I listened.
their
I
job.
texted you yesterday, and I said it was great. I'm going to meet with Designer Advantage, but what I heard was different from how I price, and it was like, and I was like, oh God, okay, let me consider this and let me look at it. And I did have a conversation with we talked for an hour recently, and she kind of called me on a rant, or not a rant, a vent, and she needed to just get some stuff out. And it was a great conversation. And we said so many times, let me let you go. And we just would keep going. And we really talked about that kind of thing. And I am always saying, I'll go first. I'll tell you what my pains are, if that helps open it up. But if you're on these calls, again, going back to my corporate days, the biggest thing that they would always say is, how many people are on this call? Look at the salary of each of these persons. Are we spending this time wisely? Because
Right.
look how much money have we spent. So it's the same for us. You got all these designers in this for an hour, 30
Right.
minutes, an hour. Can we get to the meat? Like, we can't be fluff. We can't say, yeah, it's going, business is good. And blah, blah, blah. No,
Let's drill it down.
what are we really struggling with? What is the problem? In the interior design community, there are a few people I didn't get a chance to send it to because I was just busy, but I sent my contract to whoever asked and sent me their email because I ended up creating like a contract template just for when people asked to send it out. And like I said, I know there's some people I probably missed that came in afterwards, but I tried to send it to as many. Matter of fact, I may go back and see if I can find who I missed, but there were as many folks as I could to send it to. And tell me if there was something you didn't like about it. Like, but
Right.
it's a contract. It is not, I'm going to take all of my information out. It's just legal language, right?
Right.
ChatGPT can generate you a contract. So why are we afraid to share
I think it
the,
boils down often to, and I don't, this constantly is there's a lot of secrecy around pricing.
okay.
And to some degree, it's understandable. It's a custom product. So
Mm,
no two projects are going to be a
the same.
identical price tag, which I understand. But I will say the caveat to that is in generalities, it's not that different. I mean, it might be off by, $100 on this thing or $200 on that thing or $1,000 on that
Right.
thing. But when it boils all down to the general price of, what a kitchen is going to cost if they're hiring
Right.
Tina Johnson, you
Right.
kind of have an idea of what a kitchen is going to cost them. You know,
Exactly. Yep.
if they're going good, better, best, you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like if you're going
Which
to
is what I
go
do. Yep.
good, better, best. And I think that we don't talk about it enough. We don't talk
Mm-mm.
about what the hourly fees are or the flat fees are and how many hours it takes. And that's why we have even experienced designers behind closed doors and DMs asking those same questions because
Yep.
they might get a project that is a little bit different than they typically do. Maybe they have a project that's going to be interior and exterior, or maybe it's a multifamily or something they
Mm-hmm.
just haven't cracked yet.
Yep.
And no one wants to leave money on the table. Nobody wants
Nobody.
to be having a conversation where they're underbidding because you can actually lose jobs from underbidding like
Yes.
you can from overbidding because they're thinking
Yes.
like, you're too cheap. Obviously, your work is not good. Or
Y-
obviously, you're not at this
I
level that I need.
literally said the same thing to my design assistant as I move into luxury full home. I have to make sure my mindset is because I am coming from a place of, and I still will always, there are always ways to high low things, right?
Right.
Everything,
Yeah.
even the person with the most money doesn't want every single thing to be super
No, because
expensive.
not everything has to be. I mean, a
Has to
guest
be.
room that gets slept in once in a great
Yes.
while is not going to get the same treatment that your primary suite is going to get.
Right.
Period.
But it's the messaging when you're doing the walkthrough and doing the things. And I started picking up with the face and reading again, being a people person. Like I have to be really careful about making sure. I was like, oh yeah, we can probably get that fixed. And they said, no, just replace it. And it's like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? It's little tales
Right.
that I've learned over the time as that now I'm in this new season or whatever. It's like, okay, you have to be mindful. That's kind of, you have to read that because then you don't position yourself as an expert. I was telling
Right.
somebody else,
You're not thinking big enough
you're
too.
not thinking big enough.
Right.
Yep. And
Right.
that has hurt me. And so I'm doing phenomenal with it now.
Good.
Pricing
Good.
is like I put it out there and I find it's data driven really. Like people can and respect a price that has data with it.
Right. Right.
And because
I would
my
love an ideal world. So I had a designer that I had an interview with Mrs. Paranjape Lori. Do you know her on Instagram? Love
no.
her. Everybody should follow her. We had a
Okay.
great episode where we did really drill in and talk about money. And one of the things that Lori does that I think is really clever is that she'll break it down by rooms, so a
Mm.
child's bedroom,
Uh-huh.
a kitchen, a living room, a closet, a pantry, hidden butler's pantry, whatever those might be, and say, you like this.
Uh-huh.
This is what
I
this,
love that.
you
Yep.
like this. This is what this costs. I can't deliver this for less. This is
Yep.
what that costs. I can, we can play around with, if you want it to be all the finishes and look as beautiful as this looks, this is what this costs.
I literally have that in my, it's listed out and I have the 3 different, and I say, hey, this kitchen. And I also, have you heard of something, the cost versus value report?
Cost versus value. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I attached that but then I started drilling down even further. Hey, this kitchen would be 75,000.
Right.
And this is what you can typically expect in this kitchen for 75,000. If you want a $125,000 kitchen, this is what you can expect in that kitchen. The bedrooms, same. And I just go all the way down to all of the things, and the number comes out. And so then my pricing is the same, whether I'm doing by square footage or whether I do flat fee, but I don't do hourly. I may present that it's an estimate of hours, but I'm not tracking my hours. It's just the expertise that I know what it's going to take. But it says design will be between 50 and 80. Construction is between these hours, these hours, these hours. If we're going by an hourly number, here's the total. So it makes more sense just to say, I estimate it's going to cost this many hours. This is my rate. And then there's the price.
I
Get
want to,
less
I want to just
pushback.
like kind of, I mean, I'm putting you on the spot here, but when you first started, were you flat fee or
I
hourly?
was hourly when I first started.
And what were you charging per hour? Just curious.
I think one of my first may have been 50, and I quickly jumped to 75.
75 is usually the minimum. Like that.
Yep, I did one at 50 and realized, oh no, that's
No,
not
that's
right.
way too low. Yeah.
And you know what? I might not have. Yeah, I did, because I might have. Yeah, so I think I did 50. Then I jumped to 75, and I stayed there for a little while. And I'm not necessarily. I'm opposed to hourly, and I'm not. My issue with hourly is a little bit on me too, because there is so much that I'm doing that you don't when you don't see me, especially during that design time.
Right.
And I had a hard time, and I might not now if I went back to hourly, because I would have these conversations, but I felt bad sending an invoice and you haven't seen me. Even though we
Right.
talked about it, you knew it, or there isn't a deliverable, there isn't any movement, because there's not movement. We're in the phase where there won't be, or whatever. And I'm sending invoices. So I found myself waiting until I gave you a deliverable. And then it was like, that really wasn't what I said I'd do in the contract, but that felt better for me. It just became a mess. And I have sleepless nights thinking about, and I'm working on them, getting my magnesium and all of these things. But I'm thinking about your project in my head. I can't bill you for, I know they say flat fee, you leave a lot of money on the table, but hourly I just can't. What if I'm working on two projects at the same time? Am I billing both of them? I see, because of my brain, which most likely may be ADHD, it's like undiagnosed, but it's like, if I'm sourcing here and I see a chair here, then where do I charge? It was just too much for me
Right.
personally.
Right.
Flat fee feels better. It feels more comfortable. It aligns with contractors, architects. And I think it kind of goes back to my project management background. Unless you change the scope, we're good. You
Right.
never have to hear from pricing about me again. We can come up with how you can pay me in full. We can do deliverable based, or you can pay a substantial amount up front and then go to a monthly fee.
Now that you're flat fee, what do you figure your hourly project fee is now?
I go between 175 and 200, depending
Okay.
on the
And then
the scope.
are you is that factoring in also profit on product?
No, profit on product is separate.
Separate. Okay. So
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
different bucket.
This is
This is
just
where your hourly
this is
design
just so I
fee.
can say to somebody, I estimate your project is going to be 150 hours times this hourly rate. I'll show you a breakdown of the estimate of the hours. And I had a client ask me, if you come in lower, do I get anything back? I said, no, because if you come in higher, I don't come back to you. And they signed and didn't have a problem with it.
Right. Right.
But lately where I'm at, I'm either other well paying, or I don't like well to do is the word, but successful entrepreneurs, lawyers, doctors, those kind of. And so they're really like,
they want it all defined.
I have a potential client meeting. The intake meeting was great. She was like, I want the choices to be paper or plastic.
Right.
Like, I wanted that simple. And so I find that I can have different conversations from the others. Like they say, the lesser clients stress you out. It is very much, it is, though, sometimes the first time they're working with the designer. So I do have to overcome, but they are successful in their right. But they're still hardworking. They're just not independently wealthy clients, but they so they like that straightforward, and the data shows, and they can, even if they say, wow, that's a lot, but the data, it balances, it makes sense,
Right.
and they can pay at the deliverable, and then we don't and it makes the money part, and my contract speaks to markup and my profit, and it makes it clear. I don't
Right.
have the percentage. I didn't have it before, but again, go to the conferences, attend,
Yes.
see what you need in your
Learn.
business,
Yeah.
learn, research. And so I listened to what the lawyer had for so I
Yeah.
reviewed my contract. So I don't have a particular percentage, but I do get the profit off of that.
Right. Yeah. Now, every year, are you working on creating a better system so that the client, I love that your strength is communication and
Hmm.
project management. I think that
Yes.
that is such a benefit to you, and you
Yeah.
can teach designers so much about owning that process
Yeah.
and overcoming the fear of having those conversations, because it's not that hard once you actually do it, right? Once you commit to
Uh-huh.
having the conversation and saying that this is how this works,
Yep.
it's not received, they're not combative, you
No,
know? It's just about laying out the expectation from the very beginning so there aren't surprises,
there aren't surprises. Yeah.
for the client. And
Hmm.
do you think that that has been the best asset that you have? And are you teaching others to do that also? Because I love that you're jumping in sort of, starting as a newbie, but now you're also a mentor for so many.
Yeah, my design assistant reached out to me, and funny thing, she's a realtor, but she's young. She's really young, but she's great. So when she reached out, I saw she was a realtor, and I was like, "Oh, she probably wants to connect." And good, she took me to lunch. She's like 22, so her presentation was so great. I didn't think of it, and she was like, "I just want to follow. I want to learn the design." So I had her do a few things with me, and I was like, I'm not ready for an employee. I can't, I don't want to take that on because, again, with what I see for my mom and my thing, I don't want to take on projects because I have payroll. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
But I couldn't, in good faith, keep her on as an intern. It just didn't. That's just not my style. It didn't sit right. She probably would still be around if it wasn't. But I was like, no, I have to pay you.
Right.
So we figured out, I pay her. There are certain projects that I might not need her for, but the bigger projects, I pay her for those. So I'm very much mentoring her. I let her see my mess. Somebody would probably say it's a bad idea, but it is because we started in a mentoring situation and now are in an employee type situation. And her strengths are not my strengths. She's not a designer, but she's getting really good. She's learning, she's studying. I'll give her a project and say, okay, you design this and bring me your ideas and see what we come up with. Sometimes they're good, and sometimes I have to say, no, let's do this or why. Even as much as doing a photo shoot, a big photo shoot we just had that was published. Thank you. She was like, I never would have thought it was this much work.
Oh, it is. It's so much
She was
work.
she was like, I never so she is really learning better at a certain things. Like, I'm not gonna be late, but I'm gonna be there at 10 if the
Right.
meeting starts at 10. She's gonna be there at 10 at 9:50. So
Right.
she keeps me, on my toes in that way. And so now that we're going
I
into
gotta say that I love someone. I will take. I would, have done a lot of like thinking about what it takes to make it in this industry, because it's a really difficult industry
it
to
is
be
very hard.
in and to make profit in. And we're still, to me, in its infancy, where we have a lot of work to do as women,
Uh-huh.
business owners, as
Uh-huh.
a community. While we are sharing information now, while we are communicative now, there's a lot more on the table. We need to get better about retirement. We need to be building businesses that are assets that can be sold. We need to be building wealth amongst ourselves. We need to
Yes.
be,
Agreed.
demanding more respect in the project process. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot more that we need to do together, a lot
Uh-huh.
of work that we need to do. But I think that one of the things when people ask me, like, what do you think will make someone successful? There, a certain amount of it is talent, like an innate talent that you have. And there's some people who just like really, really try and get better, but they're struggle with that part of
Mm-hmm.
that. And then there is being very, having a lot of business mentality, and
Right.
understanding that. But I would say the number one indicator to me when I see someone who I think is going to take off, it's that like tenacity of like wanting to learn as much as they can, throwing themselves in and taking a leadership role from the very beginning, like sort of positioning themselves to not only learn from everybody, but not just stay in the background,
Yes.
to have a voice and to
You have to.
jump in with both feet like you do. And you have to be willing to put yourself in kind of uncomfortable positions sometimes where you're
Yep.
doing something where you don't know that it's your right to do it or
Yep.
but you have to say, who's stopping you, really?
Yeah.
Who is stopping you from claiming that space?
Yeah. I listen to, because, we all suffer from that. What am I going to share? What do I have to bring? The
Right.
title says expert. So I listened to one or two, and I think one of the recent ones, I listened to them, but sometimes I stop because podcasts in my field, for me, I have to be really specific because it can be overwhelming because then you try to implement everything.
Try to implement too many things. Sure.
So
yeah.
I do more crime podcasts than anything else.
Yeah.
But one of the things I took from someone said that you need to work for somebody else before you start your own firm. And I agree with that. That wasn't my journey. But even if you've worked in corporate America, right? Or if you've worked somewhere else, and I think Erica Ward kind of penned this term of transferable skills years ago, you have to take that. And so I've been in a boardroom and been the only woman or been the only
Sure.
Black woman or been, you know what I mean? And I remember all of the things that I keep. It was like, don't be neat and tidy. Like, don't come in a meeting and have your portfolio and have your phone and things. Make a mess. That's what men do. They make a mess. The papers everywhere.
Spread out.
Yeah, spread out.
In their space.
They do that, and own what you have. I come to realize, what my strengths are. I'm 5'9". There, when I, walk in, it's gonna be, you're gonna know I'm there, right? Like,
Right.
but I don't think I have a boisterous, like, see me type persona. It's just,
There's definitely a balance too.
It has to be a balance, right?
Absolutely.
And so you have to own that. And so how I take that skill into here is I'm in the spaces. I'm here. I'm saying hi. I'm introducing. And
me,
the biggest thing is genuine, authentic.
The genuine.
It's not,
that's the thing. The genuine, because I've seen people come into the space where they're spamming everyone. Like I recently have had a coach that was like, spam to every person with like 200 followers and trying to like, and I woman, so I feel badly for her, but I'm like, look, like the way you're just approaching this is
wrong.
Incorrect. This is, I mean, who are you to coach someone when what you're doing is incredibly disrespectful and annoying to everyone?
Yeah.
You're trying to come in. I mean, they're not personal messages. It's like, can I do this? Can I do that? Can you help me to hear it? Like it's a mass email type thing. And we used to see it years ago too on Instagram where a brand would come in and they would just like DM everybody and the same, and I would get like, I see you're doing interior design, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you obviously don't see what
you haven't really read you haven't read, you
haven't even
don't know,
looked at my account,
you don't see that I do interior design. If you
exactly.
really look at the biggest, like you said, I feel like the biggest asset a person can have is being genuine. Like,
absolutely.
Especially, like if you're a good person, don't be a genuine, terrible person, but
genuine douche, but
be genuine, be authentic, and that will go far. But it's hard, but don't be a shrinking violet. And I can say those things, but that's just naturally my personality. Again, I remember, you used to have to do those corporate personality things. And my top trait was winning others over.
Right.
And I was so embarrassed by it because my contemporaries, the other managers, directors, whatever, it was like, these real powerful, like, they're a director and they're this and they're that. And I was like, winning others over, put me in front of this and do this. And I was just like, and fast forward, I'm like, that's the perfect skill to have.
Right.
What this is, I'm not salesy. I will probably undersell before I do anything else, but I'm going to win you over,
Right.
And
because you're going to understand that you're genuine, that you're coming from a place of wanting to really help someone.
Correct.
That you care about the end outcome, So those things I think are transferable to being a good salesperson too,
Yeah.
you know, and winning clients. So
Yeah.
that's not the worst
It's
skill
not
in the
hard.
world to
Every time I
have.
want to, it's not easy, I should say. Every time I want to quit Instagram, somebody says, I found you from Instagram. I've had you, I can't tell you how many people have said lately, recently, the clients that are signing or have signed have said, oh, I follow you. Didn't even know. So
Right.
I know the potential was always there. So I run my account purposely. I just do authentic. I don't have anything scheduled. There's no timing. I do know the algorithm statistics for my account. I know that. Like I know I should post at this time, but I am very organic with my posts. But I had a client just like, I love your hair. I loved this. Because I went to show her my portfolio. And she was like, I don't need to see it. I love
I've
all the
already
stuff
seen
that
it.
you do.
I've
And
already
so it's
seen
like,
everything.
oh, and so you have to, you show up authentically. I think, some of my projects have been, I'm like, do you see my style? You sure? But it's me bringing their vision. And I think that's what I love. Like even the art, I was flipping through the magazine that I'm published in, and it was all like new builds, everybody's house almost, they were great. And then my project comes in and it's like totally different. You got birds of paradise flowers everywhere. You've got a plant room and a real wood library that we didn't paint, but it felt, and her home is the same kind of in a nice county here in Michigan. And that kind of made me feel proud because it's like it stood out as different from the others. And so it's not my style, but I loved working on it with her. I loved bringing her vision to life. And so
Right.
I like
Well, it's
to
another
do that.
checkbox and something that Nia Johnson can do too. Like,
Yeah.
yes, I can do this
Yeah.
style authentically to you, and I can do
Yeah.
this style
Yeah.
authentically to you. It doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be the designer's personal style, but you still are putting yourself all over it because
Yeah.
it's you. You're still part of
Yeah.
that
I
process.
think about that a lot because it's like, what is my design style? And I'm like, I always answer it. My personal style is very like I love creams, I love beiges. I'm in my dining room because my office is under construction because I'm redoing it, but it's black. And then but the rest of my house is chantilly lace, and I've got blue hair. My house is blue, But I do the pops of colors, but I am very comfortable in this space, in this ivory cream neutral world with pops of colors. It just brings me a sense of calm and beauty. Now I will pop your house out and do all of the colors and the thing I was saying on Threads, which is another really, really great community. I
Yes,
love.
yes.
Oh goodness. Threads is like a big hug. And the designer asked, does everybody's house feel like a mess? And I said, not so much of a mess or unfinished. It is, we see so much, so I can't commit.
Right.
And so I've
There's going to
wallpapered.
be something else
I know there's going to be
down the
something else.
road that you're going to love, you're going to be obsessed with.
The
So it's
decision
hard.
fatigue I had with my bathroom, we switched out the sconces mid renovation. And I'll tell you, my husband was like a thin thread. I was like, we've got to change them.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't even put tile in the backsplash because I couldn't commit to something. And I just now think I might do a wallpaper. But what I was going to say is I put wallpaper in all of my clients' homes. I have not a stitch of it in my personal home because I
Right.
can't commit.
Right? Because the next day there'll be something else that you're like, oh my God, I'm
Right.
obsessed with.
I was in love with,
it.
I'm still in love with the Philip Jeffries rivet collection and I want to put it somewhere. But then now they're doing a different pattern of the rivets. And then and I'm just like, I can't, the first I think I'm my daughter because I redid her room and she wants wallpaper on the ceiling. And it pains me when she sees another little girl's room that I did and I put wallpaper and she's like, she got wallpaper on her ceiling. I'm like, I promise you, I'm going to put the wallpaper. So it is my personal style is just very calm and soothing. And I think that's just because I need to live in a space like that in order to create these other bold, beautiful, and often quite different spaces.
Right.
So I don't have one particular design
I don't think that
style.
that's unusual. We talk to designers all the time and a lot of them struggle. I would say more designers struggle with their own homes, partially because there's just so many new things they know are coming out every year. But another aspect of it is if you've been in the design world for a long time, you're getting sometimes really high-end cast-offs from clients and or things that didn't work out in the project. And it's like, yeah, you have to work it into your own house because it's not just junk you want to throw away.
Right.
It's really high quality product, so you're just thinking like, "Ugh, I can't, that table is beautiful, but it doesn't really isn't what I wanted for my own
Right.
house, but I have to use it was
I can't tell you how
$50,000,
many lamps I have, because I love a home goods vessels situation. I have a million of these, like this one is sitting here, like a million of these things because
Right.
they work great for styling and different things. And when they're on sale, I
Right.
grab a bunch. And so at first they would be all over my house and I would use like my shelving and shelf styling. And then it was getting to be like too much. I was like, I don't even know where to put them. So now I have a rack downstairs where I just kind of put them.
Have all
And
your styling
yeah, so I grab them
accessories.
when it's time to style or I present them as a part of the project. And most times the clients buy them. And some of them I love to DIY. I'll paint them. Like this one came green. I painted it.
Oh,
And it's just fun. That's an outlet for me. So I have tons of those all around the house. I do my own artwork sometimes. I want to, get into that even a little bit more. The artwork that's in my living room, and nobody ever can believe it. And then I did one for my bathroom. It's like this really textured layer print that I did. I did a faux line wash. None of this has been seen yet. My living room has been, but
yeah.
Lori, it's just and I'm leaning into, I don't have to be one thing. Right.
No,
I can
you
do,
don't.
I can do all of the things. At the time this airs, my YouTube page would have launched. And so I feel like that's going to be my outlet
I
to
love that.
do all of the things because I do get so many clients from Instagram and I don't want you to see me and think I'm going to DIY you a table.
Right.
And in my intro, it's not really even me DIY. I always say it's DIY BH, DIY by hubby, because I started and he's like, let me help you. And so he finished because I can't, the
It's
minute
your
thing.
idea. You're the
Yeah,
idea
it's just
person, but he's the
very much
executor of the idea.
that. Yes. Yeah. So I was like, that's where that'll land. And then the brand partnership part, a lot of them want YouTube content from you. So I will launch that. And I think that's where that stuff will live and it'll be because TikTok, I couldn't keep up with that. And it's just
And
too
we don't know where it's
much.
going to go either.
Yeah.
That's the
So I
difficult
was like,
part
I'll just
about
do, and
social
that way I
media.
can just do all of the things, the skincare, the makeup, and that I won't have to worry about it. And Instagram will stay, my very,
Concentrated interior design business,
yes.
that kind
Yeah.
of thing. And that's interesting. That's an interesting concept to be, sort of market differently on the different platforms that you exist on, because you don't have to be one thing to everyone. And we all have different facets of ourselves and
Yes.
different interests, different things that are meaningful to us that, would help someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not out of the realm that you'd be doing that. I love that you're doing that. I think that's
Yeah.
really fantastic.
I think it's there's some other, and we just talked about what I can't share, but as you know, there are always things in the works, but there are two things that have popped up for me, that reaffirmed for me to continue to be authentic, to continue to show up because people appreciate that and that's what they see. And it is like, I didn't even realize you were following me. And again, I have 6,000 followers. So it's not, I'm engaging. At the conference I was at, I had somebody audit my Instagram and she was like, oh, you got high engagement for just such a low, micro account or whatever. But I am reaffirmed that I just continue to just don't, making sure I'm only human. So not to do that comparative analysis of somebody else and looking at that and just stay in your lane, focus, heads down and do good work and be a
Right.
good person and
Right.
show up. And so that has keeping that theme. And the last thing I wanted to share, I don't know if the last thing is, I don't know how long we've been talking, but prepare during the quiet times because I think I had
Right.
shared with you, it had gotten eerily quiet for me last year.
Right.
And what I mean by that is typically what success looks like to me is a wait list.
Right.
Is to have somebody waiting in the wings for me to start another project. And I haven't ever had a wait list, but I always had somebody come right when something else, or I would have one or two come in I'm ending, get ready to do photos, then another client signs on, then another. It always has worked that way, right? This time it was like, hello, hello, hello. And so what I did was I was like, okay, now's the time, update that website, work on these things, look at that YouTube,
The whole
do
thing.
that,
Yeah.
you know.
Marketing, I tell people the same thing. We just had a question that was anonymous come into the private group on Facebook, and they are experiencing that first time ever, no one waiting in the wings and
Mm-hmm.
thinking, and it's scary. It's
It's
scary to
very
not know
scary.
it's when you're an entrepreneur and you don't want to be waiting for the next paycheck,
Right.
I mean, but the only time when you're not busy is the only time that you really have to prep and
Yep.
prepare and
You do.
build a system. So I know it's scary,
It's very,
especially if you're in a situation where you have overhead and that you have to actually deal with. Like
yeah.
there are definitely designers who are having layoffs right now. There are
Yeah.
designers who are, changing their business model. There are designers who are figuring out the marketing side right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a great economy,
No,
to
it's
really
not. It's
design a
not.
luxury
Yeah.
service in right now.
Yeah.
But I think that those are the times that we can drill down and we can,
Mm-hmm.
perfect our process, reach out to past clients, figure out
Yeah.
how the marketing piece
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more. I mean, I'm always telling designers, don't forget of who the other luxury businesses in your market and how you
Yes.
collaborate with them. If you were doing a like video or a blog or
Mm-hmm.
even just a post where you're mentioning, you know, last month in February, it could be like the most romantic restaurants in your
Yes.
city.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I
Yep.
mean? That our high end client, like the steakhouse that has
Mm-hmm.
beautiful velvet,
Yes. You
there.
are
We
so
do
right.
photographs of all of those, just screenshots of those, share them on Instagram, put them into a blog post, put them into a video. We're like, these are the most romantic restaurants in the Upper West Side. You know what I mean? And you tag all of those businesses. Obviously, if you're mentioned as one of the businesses that has the most romantic restaurants,
Yes. Yep.
during February for Valentine's Day and February
Mm-hmm.
1st,
Mm-hmm.
then you're more likely to share that content because you want people to see, look, I've got the most,
Yes.
romantic
Based on
restaurants,
this
but they're
person. Yep.
sharing your post.
Yeah.
Now you're exposing their audience of luxury buyers to your
To your,
content,
yeah.
that's
And
how this works. It's
it
little by
is little by little.
gaining an audience.
And you can't, I haven't boosted a post in a while. Just because do
And
I need to,
I will tell you, when you do boost, also think about those markets. Like it doesn't have to, it could be people who follow the local day school, people who follow
yep,
the country club.
yep.
Instead of just like a lot of people
Yeah,
do,
you could do design. People who are interested in design, and you
yeah,
just end
don't
up
do
getting
that.
other designers. Don't do that one.
Don't do
And
that.
it helped me get over, which made me just recently think, oh, it's probably time. Let me do a boosted post, even if just to keep it fresh. I got a sponsored post from Hermes,
Wonderful.
luxury brand.
Right.
I get their emails.
Right.
I get spot, and they're supposedly so secret that you don't even need to, right?
Right.
But when I saw sponsor, I said they're putting money into people seeing their ads on Instagram.
Right.
Girl, you better boost your post and stuff. You know what I mean?
I will tell you, always boost from the desktop, not your phone, because
Oh.
iPhone adds a 30% surcharge. 30%. They will just take that. So
So
don't
that's how long it's been since I
don't
boosted.
do it.
It's
It's a new
before
rule. They
they did
will
that.
add 30%
I
on.
did hear that.
Yeah, so you're doing that from the desktop.
It is very much like there are certain things, if your data shows that that's a market. Like I said,
Yeah.
every time my phone rings, someone says, oh, Instagram, I did a
Right.
search, Detroit, which is why my hashtag always has Detroit interior designer, Michigan interior designer, Metro Detroit, because it works. So yeah, but we have to start thinking like that.
Right.
That's a very valid point. Like
Right. You have to put your marketing hat on when you're
yes.
marketing, and you have to put
Mhm.
your bookkeeper hat on when you're doing
Mhm.
finance, and you have to,
Yeah.
have a customer service hat on when you're dealing with your client,
Yeah.
so we all, as a individual entrepreneur business or a small business, it's scheduling that time to be those different roles for your company
Yes.
because they need all those roles,
They need all those roles, and
Yeah,
that probably is the challenging part,
it is. It's
and
but
figuring out
when you're
when.
in the process, it doesn't feel good to
Yeah.
jump out of that process and be something else,
Yeah.
especially if that something else is something that you don't actually enjoy
And
doing,
I
you
hear
know?
people all the time. Sometimes I feel like podcasts can be out of touch because there's like, oh, we hired out for that. And oh, we hired that. And I'm like, okay, I need to talk to the person before they had the money to hire out for these
Right,
things. What did
right,
you do?
right,
But there is the benefit. I remember bragging about, oh, I do my own 3D renders. And everybody was like, why? That takes so much time and blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of like, oh, yeah, I guess you're right, And so I hired it out for the last several projects. And I was like, this is great. It saved me so much time. It
great.
was great, but there is that point where you can't hire things out. You know
You
what I
can't.
mean?
You have to learn and be scrappy and figure,
Yeah.
going
And
on to
I,
ChatGPT and asking, like, if you were my business, what would you
yeah,
do for an entry level bookkeeping plan or entry level,
yes.
marketing plan
Yeah.
and
And that's where
follow
I'm
those
I'm at
steps.
that point where I'm just getting able to hire, certain things. But it's like I always think when I'm listening to podcasts, where are the people who can't and how can we solution? So
Right,
that's why I say that's
right.
my sharing. Like I said, I think I met somebody at the design influencer conference. Told her I was a PMP. She followed up. We scheduled a call and I talked her through it. And she was like, should I get a PMP? And I told her what the difference is, the exam, what it's like, how can it be beneficial? And it was an hour, but I think I helped her. That's going to help her business because she had
Sure.
just recently been laid off. And so she's trying to decide what she's going to do. But she had spent the money to go to this conference or had heard she should come to this conference. And she did. And so that is why. And so that's why my will always be to reach back and help pull forward. It's
I
always going to be
love,
that.
love that about you. I
Yeah, I'm
think
meeting
that's
with somebody
remarkable.
next in 2 weeks. Somebody I want to get sure.
Yes.
Like, yes, there
Because
will.
we are one community and by, we will help each other succeed and we will become a stronger community of interior design professionals by working together. I
For
mean, really
sure.
doesn't hurt to help others because you're going to be in that position too, where you need that
Hmm.
help too. You need
Yeah,
that phone
no, yeah,
call.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for
Thank you
sure.
so much, man. This has
Oh,
been
this was
so
great.
fantastic. I could
Yes.
talk to you literally all day. It's
I
such a
know.
great
I'm so
conversation.
glad I just got out of my head. I was like, what do I have to share?
I don't know how often I hear that privately before we start podcasting. People are
Really?
always saying that. So don't feel alone
Yes.
but there's always so much that
There's
people have
That's what
to
I thought.
share.
There's
I
always, yeah.
mean, and I guarantee you there's someone that will be listening to this and changing their perspective on how they communicate with others or how they build community within their own business. And I think that's remarkable. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what we're trying to do is help designers out there learn to do things by working together.
It working together, being each other's ally and friend
Yeah.
and community is how we're going to build
Yeah.
communities because that's
And
what we're
be
doing, right?
so
We're building
excited when
homes.
someone else has that win, be
Yeah.
so
Yes.
excited for them.
That's the thing. And you check that internal. If you're not genuinely happy for somebody, fix that
Yeah,
because
fix that.
you're not going to be successful. So be
Yeah.
genuinely happy for folks and it'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Bye.